I got to admit that I think that Sergio Mora gets a bit of a bad, rep. Maybe because I met him, I'm like, oh, yeah, cool ass dude. But the rematch between him versus Danny Jacobs is official. I'm sure you probably heard it already. September the 9th, 2016, and of all places, Reading, PA. Now, me being from Pennsylvania, me being, from Philly, and about 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half, depending on, if it's at night, maybe 45 minutes, depending on if you're speeding. Reading, PA is really only known, for like the outlets. You can get you can go to the polo outlet, and get like a bunch of polo shit. Or, back in the day, you would go out there and get your Timberlands and shit, your trees. But I'm thinking, why did they choose, this venue, But whatever the case may be, it's a PBC on Spike on T Street Controversy. This is T Street Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live, and Sergio Mora's not getting shit because remember his last, meaning getting shit from the media. Nobody's giving him shit. But Danny Jacobs is because of what's going on with the Golovkin fight. And the WBA said that if, to Steve Kim, that if Gilberto Mendoza, who's the WBA president, said to Steve Kim, and he posted on his Twitter that, if they didn't order, if Canelo and Golovkin didn't work out, that they will order Golovkin versus Jacobs. It didn't happen. So in my opinion, they may have probably already knew, meaning the WBA, that, well, Al Heyman, whoever came to us and said, let's hold off on the Golovkin fight. Let's get this, Mora rematch. Because remember, he got hurt, and Mora had Mora had knocked Danny Jacobs down after he told me in an interview that he was known to knock him down. And it's on the channel, so I'm sitting there like, you Sergio Mora, dog, oh shit. You ain't known for knocking people out. And of course, Sergio Mora ended up going down himself, and he had a very, what did he break his ankle, or did he twist it real badly? I believe he broke it. But basically, what I've learned is, in a way, I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard that Al Heyman, if you go to him, you'd be like, yo, Al, listen, like I was hurt, let me get a rematch, and he'd be like, all right, I'll see what I can do. But also, at the same time, he could be, saving Jacobs for something bigger. What I noticed with his fighters is, he tries his best to get them as much money as possible before they get into like a really, really, really big fight. And the really, really big fight would be him versus Golovkin. And would he fight would Golovkin versus Jacobs? Would they try to put that on pay-per-view? I don't know, because Jacobs is making about $1 million a fight. So it would be interesting to see how they would do that. But as it stands right now, we can't look past Sergio Mora. I'm a Danny Jacobs fan. I think, and plus, he's a cool dude. He survived cancer. But competition has got to step up, man. It's time. It's time. He can't be fighting, Caleb Truaxes and shit like that anymore. Those days are long gone. And the 160-pound division, even though Golovkin has 3 belts, it's still deep. Now, they did, from my understanding, try to get a deal done with the winner of Andy Lee versus Billy Joe Saunders, and they contacted Billy Joe Saunders, from my understanding, and Billy Joe Saunders didn't want to fight. So that's to Danny Jacobs' credit. They were going to try to work on the Chris Eubank Jr. fight when he won the WBA interim, but Chris Eubank Jr. didn't want to fight. So when you look at it, he would have potentially probably had, he potentially could have had 2 different big fights against Chris Eubank Jr. and against Billy Joe Saunders, and it was like, well, all right, Sergio Mora, we told you would get it. We didn't think we was going to get it this soon. Well, let's make the fight. So, do I feel that Golovkin versus Jacobs is going to happen? Yes. I feel that it may happen in maybe January, February of next year. Maybe. I feel it's going to happen in 2017. And the WBA has to do what they have to do in making sure they enforce it, because Danny Jacobs has to fought a mandatory in God knows how long. And I understand from what Keith Thurman said in an interview right on his channel, where Keith Thurman has talked about why he couldn't go to the WBA, being a WBA world champion, and be the mandatory for the WBA Super World Champion Floyd Mayweather. Apparently what he said is, well, not apparently, what he said was that when you're the WBA Super World Champion, you're up there on a cloud. That's the words he was using, being fed grapes and strawberries. And, when you're Super World Champion, you don't have a mandatory. Unless the WBA says, all right, listen, we got to get you, in a big fight. And this guy's a WBA World Champion. Let's have you 2 fight for the WBA Super World, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make somebody else the WBA World. But the WBA is supposed to be eliminating that WBA World title or WBA Super World title. Basically, it's supposed to only be one champion in each division. But what we learned with the Ricky Burns fight at 140 pounds is they kind of went against their word, So, it's a complex situation. But I want to see Sergio Mora versus Danny Jacobs too. I was there at the first one, and I want to see how the second one will go. But I can understand like how fans are frustrated and they don't want to see it because they're saying, well, what happened to Golovkin? But if you look at it, there was other big fights out there for him, but we get Sergio Mora. So that's probably, like I said, it's probably going to be Golovkin versus Jacobs in either January, February, maybe March. Golovkin usually fights in February, or something like that. It's switched up over the last 2 years. He's not fighting like set dates, or set months. But I want to see the fight, and I'm hoping that it happens next. I'm hoping that Golovkin fights Kell Brook, and then his next fight is Danny Jacobs, and then his next fight is Canelo or whoever the WBO champion is at 160 pounds. But will it happen? And if he fights Jacobs, and then fights whoever the WBO champion is, he'll literally have all the belts at 160 pounds. He got the WBA Super World, WBA World, WBC, IBF, IBO, the highly coveted IBO, and what did I miss? The WBA. All those WBA belts. I'm T Street Controversy. This is T Street Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live. Of course, I'm going to be covering Golovkin versus Brook. Of course, I'm going to be covering all that shit. Please subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at T Street Live. Follow me on Instagram at TST Controversy, which is for T Street. On Facebook, my Facebook page is popping. Thank you for your support. Thank you for hanging in there with me while I got back to getting to do videos consistently. I had a rough year. I ain't gonna lie. I was working, I was doing shit last year, just falling back and watching fights. And I'm just blessed to be in a situation to be able to do that. But now we're back, and we've been watching and observing, and we're going to try to make American boxing great again, and leave all the racism shit out. I'm not saying that the racism is not there, but it's not there the way these motherfuckers is trying to say it's there. That's all I'm going to say. Please subscribe.